Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, the Prime Minister of Israel using a key reference from the Bible, applying it to a modern-day threat to the Jewish state. As Israel faces a growing nuclear threat from Iran, Benjamin Netanyahu refers to an important event from Israel's biblical history to show why the Jewish state has the right to defend itself from its enemies. 2 Americans killed in Mexico, the other 2 coming home alive. The mother of one of the survivors thanking Jesus, and the other calling his wife to tell her he was coming home.
It was just tears of joy, I guess, that he's alive.
So how will the U.S. respond to the drug cartels? The outpouring that began at Asbury University spreading to both Christian and secular university campuses, churches, and youth events across the country. We'll bring you an update. Potential Chinese spies in the sky, how drones made in China could be used for spying over our nation's capital.
We know that China is a technological leader in drones, and they don't have to be, it's not just weather balloons that are spying on Americans. I suspect drones are doing a fair amount of the activity as well.
And he starred in everything from primetime television to Christian films. Now Corbin Burnson has a new docuseries about his own journey of faith.
So many miracles and wonderful things happened. It's just God became so evident in this to me.
Those stories and more today on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin this half hour in Israel as the White House is repeating its promise to work with Israel to keep Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. This comes as the UN nuclear agency confirmed highly enriched uranium was discovered at an Iranian facility. As Israel prepares to celebrate the biblical holiday of Purim, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu invoked the Bible to reiterate Israel's commitment to defending itself. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl brings us this story from Jerusalem.
The head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, raised alarms in Israel during a visit to Iran over the weekend. At a joint press conference with Iran's Atomic Energy Organization director, Grossi said, "I think any attack, any military attack on a nuclear facility is outlawed, is out of the normative structures that we abide by." In response, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel has every right to defend itself against a nuclear Iran.
Rafael Grossi is a worthy gentleman who said something unworthy.
Grossi was in Tehran after it was revealed that particles of uranium enriched to near weapons grade were detected recently at an Iranian facility. The discovery raised concern that Iran could make a nuclear bomb very soon. Iran says it has no interest in nuclear weapons, but regularly threatens to wipe Israel off the map. Israel has always said that it will not allow Iran to obtain a nuclear weapon.
Against which law? Is Iran, which openly calls for our destruction, permitted to defend the destructive weapons that would slaughter us? Are we permitted to defend ourselves? It is clear that we are, and it is clear that we will do so. I say this because nothing will deter us from defending our country and preventing our enemies from eliminating the state of the Jews.
U.S. Joint Chiefs Chairman General Mark Milley met with Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant last week. Gallant said ongoing cooperation is required in order to prevent Iran from gaining a nuclear weapon. Netanyahu's comments came as Israelis and Jews around the world prepared to celebrate Purim.
We are on the eve of Purim. 2,500 years ago, an enemy arose in Persia who sought to destroy the Jews. They did not succeed then, neither will they succeed today.
Purim, described in the book of Esther, celebrates how God used Esther to prevent a plot against the Jewish people in Persia. Haman, a high-ranking Persian official, tricked the king into signing a death warrant for all the Jews, not knowing that Queen Esther was Jewish. Esther's favor and courage to approach the king saved the Jewish people, leading to Haman's condemnation and death. Israelis celebrate the holiday by retelling the biblical story, attending costume parties, and eating special pastries. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Here at home, the kidnapping and murder of Americans in the Mexican border town of Matamoros is moving members of Congress to take action. They want to declare the country's drug cartels terrorist organizations, paving the way for military action. Mexico's president is warning the U.S. not to intervene in its domestic affairs, but critics say the country is a failed narco state and the U.S. needs to fight the cartels with the same intensity as the war against ISIS. A road trip to Mexico for cosmetic surgery veered violently off course when 4 Americans were caught in a drug cartel shootout, leaving 2 dead and 2 held captive for days before being rescued. Officials say the 2 survivors are back on U.S. soil and recovering in a hospital in Brownsville, Texas. Their minivan came under fire shortly after they crossed into the border city of Matamoros on Friday. Cartel members hauled the Americans away in a truck. Mexican authorities searched for the hostages as the cartel moved them from place to place, eventually locating them in this shack in a remote area near the Gulf Coast. Latavia Tay McGee, a mother of 5, was found alive, according to her mother.
I had to hold my arm. I was thinking the Lord. I said, thank you, Jesus, there is a God.
Also rescued was Eric James Williams, but 2 other members of the group, Shaheed Woodard and Zindell Brown, were killed during the attack. Mexican officials say this was a case of mistaken identity. Investigators believe the gunmen may have targeted the vehicle because they wrongly believed the group were rival human traffickers. Tuesday, U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland said the Biden administration is fighting the cartels.
Look, the cartels are responsible for the deaths of Americans. We are fighting as hard as possible. The DEA and the FBI are doing everything possible to dismantle and disrupt and ultimately prosecute the leaders of the cartels and the entire networks that they depend on.
But Senator Lindsey Graham says he's prepared to introduce legislation to allow the president to use military force in Mexico to combat drug cartels.
I put Mexico on notice. If you continue to give safe haven to fentanyl drug dealers, then you're an enemy of the United States.
Former Attorney General Bill Barr said the U.S. needs to fight the cartels the way it fought ISIS.
We have to use every tool. We have to use economic. We have to use intelligence assets, military assets, and law enforcement.
Mexican President Lopez Obrador has cautioned against foreign interference, saying that the Mexican government is working on the problem. But Barr calls Mexico a failed narco state and said the government is completely ineffective against the cartels.
The Mexican government is being held hostage by tens of thousands of paramilitary members of terrorist organizations that effectively control Mexico.
Barr says fentanyl, much of it coming from Mexico, kills more than 100,000 Americans a year. 21 state attorneys general want the drug cartels designated as terrorist groups. Turning now to the revival movement that began at Asbury University, reaching more young people on both Christian and secular university campuses, as well as churches and youth events literally from one end of the country to the other. Paul Worcester, National Collegiate Director of the North American Mission Board for the Southern Baptist Convention, tweeted a video clip from a Sunday night meeting, writing, "God showed up in Ahua, Hawaii's North Shore." He added, the meeting was extended because of how God was moving. Other accounts of revival events have been posted online from across the country, including at major universities like Ohio State and Texas A&M. And you can keep up with the ongoing revival developments at cbnnews.com. A bipartisan group of senior senators has introduced a bill giving President Biden greater power to regulate and sanction Chinese-affiliated companies, including social media giant TikTok. Many analysts have warned the TikTok app can be used to collect data on Americans who use it, and they say the government needs to be able to deal with it more effectively.
These risks are not going away, and unfortunately, our tools to date have been relatively limited.
The Chinese Communist Party has proven over the last few years that it is willing to lie about just about everything. It's safe to assume that if the CCP is willing to lie about its spy balloon and cover up the origins of the worst pandemic in 100 years, they'll lie about using TikTok to spy on American citizens.
The bill would effectively ban TikTok as well as future apps that might jeopardize U.S. national security. Coming up, it is not just TikTok. We're going to take a look at the eyes in the sky. America is being spied on from above, and not just from Chinese balloons. Drones are being hacked to fly over restricted airspace. We're going to take a look at what's being done to bring them down when we come back. Potential Chinese spies in the sky. Only this time, the concern isn't about a spy balloon. It's over drones flying over our nation's capital. CBN's Matt Galka brings us this look at these possible threats buzzing around restricted airspace over Washington, D.C.
Recreational drones have been creating a growing buzz for years. The ability to provide stunning views and unique perspectives has driven the drone market to $1 billion industry in the United States. This soaring popularity has also put these flying machines on Capitol Hill's radar, especially given tensions with China. The world's largest recreational drone maker is Chinese-owned company DJI, and alarm bells ring as drones keep popping up around Washington, D.C. Here's why.
If you look behind me, there is no Capitol, there are no monuments, there's no D.C., and that's because there's not supposed to be. Washington, D.C. has some of the strictest drone laws in the country, and at minimum, drones are supposed to be at least 15 miles away. That's why we're in Fairfax County, Virginia.
This FAA map shows the no-fly zones around the nation's capital. The red ring shows a strict no-fly zone covering a 15-mile radius around D.C. The outer ring allows for drone flights with altitude and other restrictions. Most drones come equipped with internal GPS that automatically limits the ability to fly in restricted areas. But that hasn't stopped increasing flybys. This report from Politico details classified briefings presented to Senate committees about hundreds of drones detected around the Capitol. Homeland Security warned last summer about the potential for foreign adversaries to hack drones for spying or cyber attacks.
What we know is that the threat posed by UAS is widespread across the country, and it is critical that our partners have the authority to help protect the homeland.
Homeland Security Committee member Senator Rick Scott attended that hearing.
Let's wake up. I mean, since I've been up here, I've been saying our federal government has got to stop buying Chinese-made drones. These are just can be used for surveillance, and they are, as far as we know. So our government shouldn't be buying them. Our military shouldn't be buying them.
Senator Scott has introduced multiple bills to curb the use of foreign-made, specifically China-made, drones in government. The encounters in restricted airspace means someone hacked or manipulated the drones to bypass the geofencing. Whether malicious or not, it poses a problem.
And I think the way to think about it, what can you do? You can make sure you don't buy Chinese products. You don't use TikTok. You can make sure that you never buy a Chinese drone.
Regarding the restricted airspace encounters, DJI told Politico, quote, "Unfortunately, while DJI puts everything in place to identify and notify our customers about areas in which they can't fly, we can't control the end user's behavior." Fear over spying and data collection by China has only heightened in recent weeks. A new House Select Committee on China will now focus on threats and competition from the Asian superpower. More lawmakers want TikTok banned or to force the popular app to be sold to an American company due to potential spying threats. And the flyby and eventual takedown of a Chinese spy balloon after it sailed over America has only turned up the heat. South Dakota Congressman Dusty Johnson sits on the new China Select Committee.
So whether we're talking drone technology, whether we're talking wireless technology, whether we're talking apps that big tech is rolling out in coordination with CCP, we do need to be a lot more thoughtful, planful, and deliberate in how we deal with this threat. We know that China is a technological leader in drones, and they don't have to be, it's not just weather balloons that are spying on Americans. I suspect drones are doing a fair amount of the activity as well.
The good news in this divided Congress, a crackdown on the spying threat appears to have bipartisan support. California Democrat Ro Khanna also sits on the new Select Committee.
Do you feel like drones will come up also when we're talking about apps that the Chinese government may or may not have access to?
Absolutely. We need to, first of all, have our capability on drones, on AI, on satellite imaging, on quantum really enhanced. And one of the challenges is that a lot of this is now commercial technology, not DoD technology, so we need to adopt that commercial technology better. But we also need to be careful about the commercial technology that China has.
At least part of the investments backing DJI come from the Chinese government. The links have led to multiple government agencies here, including the Pentagon and the Department of Defense, to ban buying the drones for their agencies, except in limited circumstances. But another potential problem, the drones are used by local law enforcement across the country, as the machines are increasingly used to help first responders. Matt Gelka, CBN News.
Still ahead, he's starred in everything from primetime television to Christian films. Now actor Corbin Bernsen is out with a new docu-series. It's all about his journey of faith. We've got the story from you from our Studio 5 conversation with him right after this. Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. Actor Corbin Bernsen wrote and directed a film in 2010 about a minister and a midlife crisis of faith. That unique journey has now produced a 2023 docu-series about the actor's own faith walk.
A successful career. What does it all mean? There's something deeper in life here that I need to explore.
You want to trade what for what? A house in town for a movie role?
So I've been watching the docu-series. I think I'm only 2 episodes away from completion. Tell me about Journey of Faith. How did this all come about?
Well, after my father passed away about 15 years ago, I started my journey of faith.
Phone rings. Hi, sorry to inform you your father's just passed away. He's gone. Where is he? I was keenly aware of I'm on deck.
You're sitting with a bag of ashes and you go, oh my gosh, where's the guy who was the Little League coach? You know, all that stuff. And I went and wrote a film.
And for that, he wants one thing, and one thing only, our faith. No matter how challenged we may feel, whatever dark shadow we find ourselves cast under, he is there for us.
Basically, the small town funded this film.
When we rolled into town, people fascinated about us making this movie in a small town with real people.
And I wrote this film, and the day before we started shooting, the first miracle happened. Sony calls up and says, oh, Corbin, I didn't know you were a Christian filmmaker. And I went, yeah, sure, because it was about a pastor who had lost his way, and the notion that I was filming it in this town with all these real people.
You have a better chance of getting struck by lightning than a movie coming to a little town like this.
But along the way, we made the film, and just, you can only describe it as miracle after miracle happening. I had the wisdom, insight, the guidance to film the entire thing. And 2 cameras going all the time, not just behind the scenes, which you normally do, but filming the good, bad, and the ugly.
How on earth do you make a movie for $250,000?
The weather, which was going to become the biggest problem with the whole show.
And it was my first faith-based movie. It's when so many miracles and wonderful things happened, it just, God became so evident in this to me.
Just like that, I just snapped and burned it down. I didn't mean for everyone to die.
This terrible thing that he's done. Somebody explain to me what's going on.
We filmed all of it, and during COVID, I had these 300 hours of film. It reminded me what a wonderful story this was of making this movie.
This is the test, what faith really is about.
The movie started my journey of faith. And we hope it becomes sort of a pilot for let's talk to other people who have faith.
I love that.
You always get interviews about, tell me when you came to Christ and all that, but you never get where's your journey? Where, your story?
Nobody could have told me this is what would happen. I wouldn't have believed it.
One of the things I feel like God has chosen me to do is to relate to people who don't necessarily want to come to faith come to their faith, come to Christ, get to know God, because just stigma and stuff that goes against it, things that have been put out in the media, and certain people who pretend to be people of faith and of God and do awful things.
One thing that I learned about you in this series so far is this snow globe collection.
Yeah, boy, that's as you get older, you go, is that the thing that's going to make it to the tombstone? And by the way things would be, it was a trade that I made in this thing called One Red Paperclip.
Yes.
Kiss Snow Globe, which you'll see in the documentary, that led me to the town of Kipling, where I made this movie where I reestablished my faith.
It's what I wrote before I ever knew I was writing a faith-based movie. I wrote those words.
What would you say the greatest lesson this journey and this process has taught you?
Don't say you know it all. One thing it's very hard to tolerate is when I meet Christians who are wonderful people, but they seem to know it all. And I want to say, no, God, you can. God does not want you to know it all. God wants you to keep learning and getting closer and closer and closer. You know, you can never know it all. There's only one being that can know it all, and it's not me.
Corbin's Journey of Faith is a 6-part docuseries. It's streaming right now on the PureFlix streaming platform. For more uplifting entertainment, be sure to join us for Studio 5 tonight. We've got the cast of Creed with us. We'll also explore the resurrection story like you've never seen it before. And singer and songwriter Matt Redman joins us to share his musical contribution to the latest season of the hit series, The Chosen. You can catch Studio 5 on the CBN News Channel tonight. It begins at 8:30 Eastern. You can find it on the CBN News app or on YouTube as well. Coming up, he's 98, a former pastor and still preaching. And to celebrate his birthday, he took a jump through the sky. We're going to have his story when we come back. Stay with us. A North Carolina preacher is taking his faith to new heights at 90 years young. Roy Jernigan is still finding exciting ways to share the gospel and to stay in shape as well. Most recently, he celebrated his birthday by skydiving for the very first time, giving God all the glory in the process. After resigning from being a full-time pastor in Texas about a year ago, the veteran preacher has continued his ministry on Facebook, live streaming a weekly message from his home called Preacher Roy Ministries.
If you have been born again, if you are a child of God, everything in your life wants to be, needs to be controlled by the Holy Spirit of God.
Amen. Jernigan says his life is his ministry and his mission is for people to see Jesus in everything he does. Well, time now for your Wednesday word, and today's word is first. Keep God first in everything you do. He's not only concerned about presence, he wants priority. He is not only your Savior, he wants to be Lord, and it's up to you to crown him Lord and King of your life. Seek him first in all that you do. Don't doubt what he says, and all else will be added to you. That's going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. I want to remind you, you can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel at any time. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or any day. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We certainly would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.